What went through your mind when you heard the 3 to 10 years sentence?
We came in, we asked as a team for 5 to 10. That was the maximum penalty that he could get on that charge. But to be honest with you, when he said 3 to 10, I was ecstatic, but not only because of the sentence, but because of the commentary that the judge gave and the reasons why he gave that sentence. Not only did he say it was a serious crime, which throughout this trial, you know, because of the nature of it, a lot of things were minimized. This woman, Andrea Constand, went through so much. Her whole life was turned upside down. The judge touched on that. He touched on the suffering, the shame, the humiliation, and everything that she experienced. And so I am very happy that he got a 3 to 10. But I have to be honest with you, the best part was having the judge tell the defendant how serious his crime was and what it meant to the victims, or to the victim in this case.
What was the first thing Andrea said to you after the sentence was read?
I believe I asked her, "Are you happy with the sentence?" And she said yes. And that meant the world to me.
Do you think it means even more because in 2015, when Cosby was charged, there was no Me Too movement?
The Me Too movement is a very powerful movement, because when you have a victim of crime, and I think it's important to just go back to victims of crime, they're humiliated, they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, and they're traumatized. And that makes them less likely to report the crime. That isolation, that feeling that they won't be believed. And unfortunately, you saw it with Andrea Constand. You see it with the Kavanaugh accusers.
But let's go back to December of 2015. Bill Cosby's charged with aggravated indecent assault. The district attorney said if it weren't for you, that you all wouldn't be here. And he was saying that after the conviction of the second trial.
She, like Mr. Ryan here, has prosecuted so many sexual assaults, domestic violence cases, and she's always stood up for victims and has continued to do this.
When you heard the district attorney basically say you got this ball rolling, you went to Toronto and interviewed Andrea Constand and then came back with information and said, here's what I think we need to do.
It meant a lot to me because I have 2 young boys. I have a wonderful husband, I have a wonderful family, but I put in a lot of sacrifice as well for this case. And when I had to travel and investigate with all of my sex cases, I don't recommend charges lightly because I understand the stigma that can attach when someone is charged with a crime as serious as sexual assault.
Has life changed for you at all since, you became part of this team that got a conviction in the second trial?
I'm still a mom, and that comes first, and my boys are amazing. But things have changed. I went to private practice. I'm now at Stradley Ronan. I'm a litigation associate there. I don't do criminal law as much anymore, but I still do practice in substantially the same areas.
You played a big role in the first trial, but that second trial, the closing argument, and I'm going to read what you said. You said in reference to this idea of a con artist coming up, you said, yes, you did hear about a con. You march over to Bill Cosby, you point your finger at him, and you say the perpetrator of that con is this man sitting right here.
I was just doing my job, and doing my job at that moment was communicating to the jury why a conviction was necessary. Why looking at the evidence fairly and impartially could result in nothing less than 3 guilty verdicts. That's what I was doing at that point.
If that deposition in 2015 was not unsealed, would we be here today?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because you had a confidentiality agreement that precluded Andrea from going to the police. She could speak to us if we went to her, but she could not initiate contact with the police. And so I don't know.
Do you think a case like this makes people more likely to report sexual assault or less likely? Because we've seen, Andrea Constand was kind of thrust again into the public eye for nearly 3 years.
I hope that it makes people more likely to report. And let me tell you why. First, I hope that it showed and conveyed a message that when you report, when you disclose, you're going to be taken with care. Your claims will be investigated. And justice can prevail. Because at the end of the day, you're right. Andrea Constand was assassinated. Her character was assassinated, as were all of these women. But at the end of the day, in that courtroom, they all stood together. And they heard the verdict and they heard the sentence. And so, yeah, it's a painful process. I can't minimize that. But when you have support and you have advocates and you know that the justice system can work, I think that makes people more likely to report. Because the more people who can come forward and report, the less offenders there are on the street.
Do you consider yourself a trailblazer?
I believe that I was part of a very important case, and I had a team of people to help me. I had, as I have in many cases, a very strong and courageous victim. I had 6 women who were willing to put their lives and public reputation on the line to support a conviction. So if I were to say that I was a trailblazer, I'd have to say I was one of many trailblazers.